Alright, Chillcast MMA. And I'm talking about a fight that's going down November 21st, 2020. This fight is taking place at the UFC Apex facility. It's going to be Mauricio Shogun Rua. He's taking on Paul Craig. Now this is a rematch. Both these guys, they fought last year. And they both have fought one time since then. This is one of those fights where even though they both have fought since they last tangled, I haven't really learned anything about Shogun or Paul Craig, to be quite honest with you. They both fought on the last card. It was UFC on ESPN 14, the Whitaker vs. Till card. And it's like, for Shogun, he fought Lil Nog. It was an okay fight. I didn't really learn too much in that one. That was one of those fights where when you get up in age and you see these guys that are already up in age and they have the fights tacked on, and then you see they go a full 15 and it's actually a back and forth, that's never good. Just in terms of the wear and tear and what does that do to this cardio. Like, I would be surprised if in this fight it actually goes a full 15. Like, oh, and that fight went to a draw. So it's like, if this fight goes to full 15, I don't really know how that actually fares Shogun, because he just had to do that recently, and he's already talked about, he said in the post-fight presser that Shogun's already starting to think about transitioning into retirement, and he's already starting to think about working for the UFC. He's talked about having side businesses in Brazil. And you look at Paul Craig, I didn't learn too much about him on the last card either, because he just sort of did the same thing. And I understand it's one of those things, like, wrestling defense doesn't come overnight. So I'm not going to harp on that, but it is sort of bothersome from a scorecard perspective when I see a guy just sort of give up takedowns to guys that I think shouldn't necessarily get them that easily, or if you're going to give it up, make the guy at least fight for it. In a fight like this, if you're just going to let Shogun slap on a single and you're just going to play the guard game again, then Shogun's just going to wait in half guard, which, if you do that, this is one of those fights where if you just let Shogun sort of hang out in half guard, land the little punches over the top here and there and sort of just work his guard, sure, I'm sure that you have the submission attempts to make him scramble, but ultimately this is one of those things where I could see Shogun not having to do too much. Really, those first two rounds are where he's potent. Shogun's not going to have to do too much, because you'll just be content to give up a takedown and lay there for the most part. For Paul Craig, this is a fight where I feel like the UFC is sort of doing him a favor. It feels like they're giving him a second bite at the apple. Shogun has actually talked about walking away after this could potentially be his last fight in the UFC, possibly for his career. And it's one of those things where I don't know if he's fighting a guy that's going to be content to give up takedowns that favors Shogun, but at the same time, it's like Shogun, when he can dictate the terms at this age, when he can dictate the terms, that's where you really see the diversity in his skill set. When he's not pushing the pace, that's where things start to look sluggish. And then that's where we can stop analyzing it, because he's just going to fight the fight like we see every other light heavyweight. For Paul Craig, this is one of those things where you have the advantage if Shogun is going to actually try and push the pace a little bit, because if he pushes the pace, the longer this thing drags out, and if he actually does secure a takedown, I could see you in a situation where, okay, now you're looking for a submission, because that is clearly your MO and that's the thing that you do best. I'm just worried that if you get in a situation where you got this sluggish guy on top of you who's savvy enough to be able to stay out of some of those transitions where you can take advantage, then ultimately, what are we going to see? Are we going to just see a 15-minute grind fest? I don't really want to see that. I don't really want to see a situation where we have one good first round and then it's just a whole lot of semi-ADCC guard play for the last 10 minutes. I don't want to see that, but ultimately I do feel like that's what we're going to get. And if that's what we're going to get, then I think that style of fight will have to favor Shogun Rua. If we're talking about fast-paced action, if that's what we're going to see, that style of fight I feel like favors Paul Craig, and I can see him catching a submission in the third round. But ultimately, this is going to be opening up the pay-per-view, UFC 255, and I do think that this is one of the exciting fights, and everyone knows I'm trying to keep the bias out of it on this one, because I am a Shogun fan, and I've openly said that before, so I'm going to try and keep the bias out of it, keep this one a little bit short. If this is his last one, the man has had a hell of a career. There's no need for me to sit here and list everyone in his resume. But for Paul Craig, he's had a fight with Shogun before. He's fought Alonzo Menefield. He's fought Jimmy Crute, Magomed Ankalaev, Khalil Roundtree, and so on. So he is tenured, and he is starting to get to that space where it's like, this is a fight where I feel like the UFC is giving it to you again. So now you kind of have to cash in. Both of these guys are 3-1-1 in their last 5, with that one draw being against each other. So they're on similar trajectories right now. One guy's about to cash out, will retire and sort of sit on the sidelines, and one guy, who knows, he was a couple seconds away from getting cut and it being his last fight, and he still somehow, I don't understand. If you almost get cut for sort of being lax and having weird submissions, and you almost get cut for that style, would you then go on to double down and use it again and again and again? I guess you could say it pulled you from the jaws of defeat once, so it can do it again, but it's just like, man, that's not, I don't really know about that. And you're going to get bulky Shogun on, tired, bulky, old Shogun. You really want to have him just lay on top of you, a savvy, not really trying to play that Shogun. I don't really know about it, but it seems like that's Paul Craig's MO. So as far as I'm concerned, that's all we're going to see from him. And for Shogun, all bets are off. It's your last one. He could go out swinging. If he does, he's going to give up something late. But if not, just stay cool, calm, and collected, fight your 15, and call it a career. But ultimately, if you're going to ask me who I'm picking for this one, I'm going with Shogun. And again, this fight is going down November 21st at the UFC Apex facility. It's going to be UFC 255. Paul Craig, he's having a rematch against Shogun Rua. First fight was at UFC Fight Night 164. Ended in a draw. But all right, that's it for this one. You can find me on Twitter at Nixon_speaks. And I'll see you guys later on in the week.